Tutorials are a cornerstone of the Freshman Advisory Program. Our students come from all walks of life with a wide range of abilities and skills. Tutorials support student success and rigorous coursework across the disciplines by building school, teamwork, and inquiry skills. The research-based design provides opportunities for students to clarify course content, dig deeper, and work together to challenge each other to reach their fullest potential as thinkers and learners. It is the process by which we teach students to help themselves and develop Delta habits of mind, such as continuous learning and curiosity. Establishing and maintaining effective tutorials is challenging work, which requires the dedication of advisory teachers and community mentors. Students need constant modeling to achieve success with the task. Mentors help support student assimilation of skills in developing higher-level questions, using inquiry to drive the process rather than giving answers, using Cornell note-taking to record thinking and maintain focus, and writing summaries which authentically reflect the learning that has taken place. Like everything worth doing, the process improves with practice. At times, students will want to give up. This is no small challenge we are asking them to accomplish. It is important students feel comfortable sharing what is confusing is taking an academic risk, and we are asking them to do this in front of their peers. Mentors must take an active role in reinforcing positive behaviors and redirecting negative ones. The advisory teacher is there to help. You can always bring questions about the process or concerns to them for discussion and problem solving. The advisory teacher's role is to oversee the process, and they will be working behind the scenes with students to meet tutorial and other advisory objectives. Last, tutorials wouldn't work without you. Thank you for volunteering your time to improve the education of our young people. It is an investment in our community that is well worth your efforts. Good luck, and remember to think differently about public education.
The tutorial process for freshman advisory begins in the classroom a few days before the actual tutorial session. During a lesson, students will be asked to take Cornell notes on what is being taught. Cornell notes are a special note-taking technique designed to increase retention of information through repeated review and continued processing. Students have access to pre-made forms to take their Cornell notes with. These forms are divided into three main sections. The largest section is for students to record key information from whatever they're taking notes on. They are encouraged to take short, but thorough notes on what they are learning, as opposed to writing down every detail. The second section is for students to record key words and questions related to what they're learning. The last section is for students to briefly summarize the most important parts of their notes. This is especially useful later on for students to quickly look back at the key points for studying. Two of the questions that students record on their Cornell Notes form during class can then be transferred to their student tutorial form. This is to be done outside of class time. These are the two questions that they can ask during the tutorial session in their advisory class. The tutorial form has a box for students to write in each of their two questions. Below each question, students will record the subject the question is for, any course materials that might help them answer their question, and the Bloom's level of the question. We'll talk about that in a moment. Below the two boxes is a rubric for mentors to grade a student's performance in the tutorial session. There are 5 areas in which you will evaluate students: their question, resources, participation, notes, and reflection. The backside of the tutorial form is where students will take Cornell notes on the questions being presented during the tutorial session. When a student is up presenting to the group, it is the mentor's job to take notes for them. Before students enter their advisory class, the teacher will make sure that their tutorial form is filled out and that the 2 questions chosen are at a high enough level on Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is a hierarchical scale we use to encourage students to think, reason, and question at a higher cognitive level. There are 6 levels of thinking on Bloom's taxonomy. The lowest level is knowledge, then comprehension, application, analysis, evaluation, and the highest level is synthesis. If a student has written a question on their tutorial form that is not at least at the analysis level, the teacher may ask them to rewrite the question or come up with a new one before letting the student into the classroom. Once students are seated in their advisory class with their completed tutorial forms, the teacher will divide them into tutorial groups. Up to 7 students that have similar questions will be grouped with a mentor for the duration of the tutorial session. The groups will then spread to different areas of the room, often near a whiteboard or easel, so that they can record their questions and visually work through their problem. Once everyone has introduced themselves, it is time to select a student's question and begin the tutorial. Notice how the mentor reads the question out loud while the presenter writes it on the board, takes notes for the presenter on their tutorial form, and reminds students of their role in the tutorial.
Thank you.
Can I go?
Sorry.
Do your quadratic.
Yeah, quadratic formula question?
Yeah, that's easy. I can do that.
Okay,
I didn't understand.
can I have your paper?
I have.
Well, can I write it on the board? If I really do need to. Okay.
So let's start by
The first
recording your
one.
question on the board.
Yeah.
How does the quadratic formula compare to the quadratic equation? So you guys remember how take really, really good Cornell notes on the
How
mentoring
does
process.
the
How does the quadratic formula compare to the quadratic equation? And then do you guys remember that you will need to be asking her questions? It's not for me to be asking her questions. I will ask her questions when you guys stall. Okay, so who's got a question? For
So, what do you know about that? Like,
that like
Can I actually
you-
get your note, please? I'm sorry.
you imply numbers and letters into an equation, like a formula. Like, I don't know how to describe it really. You guys can speak. I don't think call me.
Can you write down how the quadratic formula looks like?
I get them mixed up, but I know probably one of them that you guys might know.
Notice how the mentor encourages the group to be more clear and concise with their questions, and encourages participation of all group members.
So what do you think positive feedback is? Like, do you know like the main parts, or like do you understand like what it means? Do you know the definition?
Can you form that into one question?
Do you know the definition of positive and negative feedback? Like, yeah.
Positive would be
Addison, can you think of something to add?
I think of positive and negative feedback. Positive, I think of it as like adding on until something stops. Like with the blood clot, you're just like adding on until the blood clot, until your cut stops.
Can you think of a question to ask him?
Notice how the mentor restates a question to the group to help them understand it better.
What does it do to keep your body heat from dropping? Like, what does your body do to keep you from shiver?
So what type of feedback is a shiver?
That'd be a negative feedback.
Why?
Because if it was a negative feedback from shivering, it's a way that your body shows that you're going back into, shows your body that you're getting cold, and then your body increases the heat from your cores so you can get warm from your outer.
So it almost does the opposite to, it's almost like a cycle.
Yeah.
Notice how the mentor helps the presenter build further on each part of the problem and keeps the presenter pointed in the right direction to discover the answer.
So you have created 2 diagrams which are an example of both positive and negative feedback. How do you explain the differences or the difference between positive and negative feedback?
Alright. The positive feedback would be, like I used the example, you get a cut and then eventually stops, and it'll just start again if you get a cut again. And then it'll just keep going on that cycle until you bleed, a clot forms, and then it stops bleeding. And then for negative feedback would be, you start at normal temperature, which 98.6, right? Around there. And then in the cold you get cold, so you start shivering, and then your body sends a message to increase body heat so you can be warm again. And then it keeps on doing that until you are in a warm environment.
So what is the difference between those two cycles?
One stops and one just continues to cycle.
Notice how the mentor ensures that students are paying attention to the presenter and taking notes on the discussion.
So positive feedback is a non-stop cycle, well, a stopped cycle, so to speak. Stopped cycle.
Oscar, you need to be taking notes,
Nah.
paying attention to the presenter, please.
Okay.
And then negative feedback doesn't have a stop. So.
You guys, it's time to wrap up. If you could go ahead and start your reflections, please.
Make sure you get your reflection.
After the teacher announces that tutorials are over, students will use the bottom section on the back of their tutorial form to write a summary of their learning. They will reflect on what they learned from the questions presented, as well as what worked and what didn't work with the tutorial process. Once their reflections are filled out, students will give their completed tutorial form to their mentor for grading. Mentors will evaluate a student's tutorial session performance according to the rubric on the front of their tutorial forms. Students can earn a 1, 2, 3, or 4 in each category, 4 being the highest. After the mentor has graded each form, they will hand them in to the teacher.
The skills I learned from participating in the tutorial process are taking better notes and asking higher level questions.
How to better answer questions that are given to me. Like, say we have a math problem and we're trying to find the answer. I know how to use the skills that I've been taught in the tutorial process to help my group better understand the question and get the answer.
In the tutorial group, you have visual learners, hands-on learners, some like just by listening, they get it. So you have a mix of everything and it helps you because you could like, some show you visually and some show you like hands-on and some explain to you. And you're like, oh, I get it this way better than this way.
Tutorials not only introduced me to the higher level thinking questions in Bloom's taxonomy, but also gave me the skills that I needed to apply them. The most helpful thing a mentor can do is to not directly answer a student's question, but to guide the question thinking process. If a student is given a direct answer to a question and they're not giving an explanation or they don't discover that answer themselves, it's not going to be as deeply ingrained in their mind as it would be if they had found it out for themselves. When we go through the tutorial process, we analyze the question that we have and then ask each other simpler questions relating to that subject that help us discover the eventual solution to our problem.